everybody, Mark AGNESI here for Gibson TV. Today, I'm in Burbank, California, outside the studio of my good friend, guitarist and producer, Keith Nelson. Now, as a founding member of the band Buck Cherry, Keith saw multi-platinum album sales and 2 Grammy nominations. Since leaving the band, he's had a successful songwriting and producing career, working with greats like Alice Cooper, Blackberry Smoke, and My Chemical Romance. You better bet, with career stats like that, comes an impressive stash of musical toys. What you're about to see may shock you. This is The Collection with Keith Nelson.
Keith. My man.
How you doing, buddy?
Good, bro. Come on in.
I'm excited to see this.
Great to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you too. Where does guitar collecting start from you? When did you get this whole bug?
Well, I think early on, okay, so I was a drummer first. And early on, I know, right? Don't hold that against me. But I think it kind of gave me a rhythmic advantage in a way. My first guitar was a Telecaster custom, like the Keith 72.
Yeah.
That a neighbor had taken and painted Van Halen stripes on.
Sick.
Right?
Yeah.
And put a humbucker in it. And I saw the guitar, and I knew he had still the neck on it. And I was putting it together kind of, because I couldn't afford a new guitar. I wanted to play guitar. So he was like 50 bucks or whatever. So that was my first guitar. I took it, stripped the Van Halen paint off of it, because I was a Keith Richards fan.
Okay.
Stones fan.
Fair enough.
And it was a Tele. I never saw Eddie play a Tele. Got it back to black and rebuilt that. And that was kind of like my first guitar. When I was ready for my first Les Paul, so I'm from a little town outside of Pittsburgh. And there was this really cool music store that was upstairs above a store that did new retail. Used stuff. It was called Johnny B. Goods in McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania. And I went up there, and it was all used stuff. And I noticed that the used ones were less expensive than the brand new ones. And that's kind of where it all started. And I was off to the races of like just looking at old guitars. And somehow in my brain, somebody must have early on said the old ones are better than the new ones. You want to get one of those old ones. I don't know how I got that.
Yeah.
It started there.
Oh, man. It's a guitar buffet.
We're doing all right over here.
It's a buffet of Brown and Croc cases.
Where do you want to start?
I don't know. We just start at the end and, and work our way down.
So, I don't know if you know this, but the Les Paul, as we all know it, for a few years, was a different shape.
I do know this. A lot of people don't know that, though. The Les Paul SG.
So, this guitar, most people, I think, feel like this tremolo on it is unplayable, but there's a little trick that makes it really playable, and 2 PAFs. How can you go wrong?
Yeah, sideways wiggle stick.
Cheaper than a burst.
Cheaper than a burst, solid body with PAFs. Now, it appears that arm is that fixed?
That arm is out of the equation right now, and we've replaced the spring mechanism with the Mojo Axe, which actually disables the tremolo and pulls the strings over the bridge a little bit, yeah. And as you can see, I have a reissue bridge on there because we want to actually, I think it may have had nylon saddles. Yeah. 62.
Oh man, where'd you get this?
That came from our good friend Elliot in Nashville. At
Rumble Seat?
Yep.
Now, do you go to SGs often, or this is kind of to have that sound, but you're more of a single cut Les Paul kind of guy, or?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes a Les Paul to me just takes up too much space.
A little too wide in the mix.
Yeah, it's taking up too much space. I love these for guitar solos, for, you know, when you're stacking things against each other, layering things, getting different sounds. Just something different. Yeah. You know, somewhere in between a Les Paul and a Les Paul Jr.
Yeah. Guitar number 2?
Guitar number 2, when 2 PAFs aren't good enough.
One more PAF will normally do the trick. Yes.
So this is an early 60, what they call a 00.
00 serial number. So
it's got a bigger neck on it.
Double whites? Have you looked? There's a lot of 00 serial bursts have.
Yeah, I haven't looked. No, I probably did look at one point, but I do not recall.
Now, did you do anything to this? Because I know on the Black Beauties, a lot of people.
No.
This original Fretless Wonder frets on here.
But what I did do is I saw a picture of Keith Richards with his middle pickup that direction, So I flipped it around like Keith has it. I don't know that it makes any difference, but
Yeah.
there's
Does
that.
the out of phase work for you on this? Is that part of the attraction to this, to get that sound?
Yeah, it's really something different, you know. And even though Frampton's was a 56 that was routed, I remember like being a little kid, seeing the cover of Comes Alive and hearing "Do You Feel Like We Do," and just always just thinking of that guitar as like this mind-blowing, unobtainable. It's so sexy. Look at that thing. It's just
black and gold,
beautiful.
man.
I sleep better at night. No, it's close by.
Where did this come from?
That came from Elliot Michael.
We're seeing a pattern here.
Yes, yes. So when you see Elliot in his little red Porsche,
Yeah.
that's pretty much why.
You bought the Porsche.
Yeah, I bought the Porsche.
Oh, man.
You're welcome, Elliot.
You're welcome, dude.
No, but you know, I've been dealing with Elliot for a long time, and he found that guitar, and there it is.
That's great. Just enough wear on it that you don't have to be shy about playing.
No, you don't have to be shy. Black guitars kind of show all the dings, and
Yeah.
but man, it's been great. It's a, you know, I would say I played heavier ones. It's not the lightest one I've played, but it really sounds phenomenal.
Yeah. Was stuff like this ever out on the road, or is this is a tool for the studio?
Yeah, that one wasn't really on the road with me ever.
Yeah.
So in this case,
Ooh, brown case.
kind of the original Les Paul. You know, so this guitar, 52 Goldtop.
Trapeze.
And with the trapeze, and with the help of a Mojo axe tailpiece, I think it's really playable now. And I have to say, there's so much tone in these guitars. You know, I was talking to Albert Molinaro about these, and he was saying these guitars are the same DNA as a Sunburst Les Paul. And when I play one, I mean, this could be one of the best sounding Les Pauls I've ever played with P90s, because there's just something going on with it.
Yeah. How you obviously are a big Junior fan, and you play a lot of P90 guitars. Does the maple top make a big difference, or is it just that pickup?
I mean, to my ear, this has a little more zing to it, and you know, we also have to deal with the pull of the neck pickup magnet.
Yeah.
So there's definitely something else going on in there. It's different than a Junior. I think it's a little more high fidelity, a little more three-dimensional than a Junior. Junior to me is just like a sledgehammer.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
It's original frets and big neck.
Yeah, not too big, but that's great. And this just kind of gives you some compensation, better intonation.
It does. You know, there's not a whole lot of adjustment with it, but they've really dialed it in so that they're making a great product.
Yeah.
And it slips right on. You know, you don't have to
modify anything.
You don't have to modify or anything.
Were you somebody that bought and kept everything that you bought? I mean, you got a lot of stuff in here, or were you a trader?
I was a flipper early on. Like, I would get something, and then I would take a couple more dollars in that guitar and upgrade.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of been this all the way into a Sunburst Les Paul. I always said Sunburst Les Paul is all roads lead to a Sunburst, and that's kind of how I got my first Sunburst Les Paul.
How many Sunbursts have you owned in your guitar collecting tenure?
I've picked up everyone I could possibly see, starting from the mid-90s, working in Hollywood at Guitar Center. I've owned 6 of them.
6 bursts?
Yeah, and I've only been lucky enough to own one at a time, but the one I have now is hopefully the one I'm buried with.
Yeah.
Because I love it. It's everything that I want in a Les Paul.
I mean, we've seen a Les Paul SG, we've seen a Les Paul Custom, we've seen a Goldtop. What else?
Well, there's really only one other Les Paul to look at. So
oh boy.
This guitar, it's a special guitar.
Yeah, I've seen a few bursts that you've had. I have yet to see this one. We've been waiting to.
And there it is. I'm not really sure of the nickname yet.
Do you name them all?
Usually.
So, we did that collector's choice on Lewis.
Yep.
How many have you had since that?
Maybe 1 or 2, but just in, kind of maneuvering guitars around and trying to find a good fit.
Because there was Godzilla, which
was
I
big.
played which had just a killer top and a ton of red and an angry bridge PAF.
And it was almost too clean of a guitar. And I know that sounds weird, but it was so perfect that I just think it needed to go to somebody that was going to really baby
keep it perfect.
A guitar. Yeah, to keep it perfect.
Now, is this your first one with the Bigsby?
My first one with the Bigsby, yeah.
Does that extra mass add anything to the sound? Do you just like having, because we were talking about like, Bigsby's went on a lot of Les Paul standards, and even, you know, when you don't see it, you'll see the snake bite from where the screws were and stuff.
Yeah, you know, I was having a conversation with our friend in Texas, Mr. Proler, and he was telling me that that a lot of people in the early 60s really wanted a Bigsby. So it makes sense that you see Les Pauls with a Bigsby. People didn't get a Gretsch, but Duane Eddy was all the rage, and that's what they wanted. So I have had the Bigsby off of this. It's under 9 pounds without the Bigsby. With the Bigsby, it's like 9.1, so it's still not unruly. I don't really hear that much of a sonic difference with the Bigsby. I mean, it doesn't bother me. The reason that it's still on, obviously, because of the pearl dowels, it's got studs in there, or the grommets for the studs. But it sounds phenomenal like that, and I'm kind of not gonna mess with it.
What's it like to be on stage, but you know you're playing a real burst? Does it change where you come from as a player? I
think so. You know, there are always moments in the set when you have things that you know you're going to do, and then there's those moments where that's like 8 bars of improv, or there's just nothing sorted out. And having something like this, or a vintage guitar, just takes it to another level. Like your senses are heightened in this odd kind of way. Time goes a little bit slower, but it sounds like an LSD trip, but it's not. But things really slow down, and you're really just in the moment, enjoying the bliss of playing one.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so great. And
and I play it 8, 9 songs in a row. Don't have to tune it.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, do you still own like custom shop 59s and stuff like that, or?
I do, and I have to say, my custom shop guitars are phenomenal guitars. And you saw a couple in the control room. Phenomenal instruments, and they are, you know, nothing's going to replicate the age of this guitar, but you guys have gotten as close, I think, as anybody can.
Yeah. Where did this one
came from Mr. Albert Molinaro.
From Albert.
And this is actually featured in the first Beauty of the Burst book.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so it's got a great provenance. He had it for approximately 30 years.
Oh, this was one that he had just been holding on to.
Yeah, before I got it from him.
So it's definitely special.
Yeah.
Oh, that's killer.
It's good stuff, man.
Now, a lot of people might not know this, but I mean, you obviously founded Buckcherry. The band took a long break there. That's how all of this kind of happened, right? Or was it happening before that?
No, I mean, I literally came to LA with a little shitty S10 pickup truck, a reissue Telecaster, a reissue Marshall 50-watt Plexi, a suitcase, and a drinking problem. And that's how I arrived. And the band got signed in the late 90s, made 2 records, disbanded for about 3, maybe 4 years. And at that point in time, I really didn't have, I had a couple things. Any guitars that I had acquired, I had to sell because I had a kid. I started working in studios. I started working for a record producer as a guitar tech tone guy. So I started fixing people's guitars and bringing in my amp collection and a couple of my guitars, and they started getting used on lots of records. The band got back together. I would work in that studio, and then I would take what I was learning and just picking up, and I would go to my little rehearsal space with like 2 mic preamps, and I would put songs together, and I just started recording stuff, and then I would play it for my friend Joe Barisi, phenomenal mixer, and he'd go, oh, that sucks, why don't you try this? And he really helped me learn how to, some of the basics of just like engineering and mixing and what I was hearing. And at the core of it has always been my passion for songwriting. When the band got back together and we started to make some money, I thought to myself, I want to create a world for myself and for my band where we don't have to rent a studio, we don't have to rent a piece of gear or a microphone or a microphone preamp. We can make our music without anybody telling us it was okay. I wanted to be able to press record and make a master whenever I wanted to. So the quest started. Want to see what's in here?
I like that shape.
This is a good one. This is double white PAFs.
I like the sound of it. Oh,
this came...
Some Marty McFly special
This
right
came
there.
out from out under a bed in Norman, Oklahoma, actually.
Really? You got it from like the...
I got this from our good friends at Guitar Center.
Yeah, right on.
They
got it from the original owner?
They got it from the original owner. It had the tuners are shrinking.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for a tip, so I have that in there, so it actually tunes up, but it's a phenomenal Zebras.
Yeah.
62.
Now, I mean, Cherry Red 345s hold a very special place in my heart because of Back to the Future, because that's kind of like why I started playing guitar, was like the scene in the movie.
Everything's still hooked up. It's still stereo. It's still.
So you use it with the Veritone?
No.
Just position 0?
I use it in position 0, and usually, it still has the stereo jack, so I have to kind of put it halfway in. But it sounds phenomenal. I don't really have anything else that does this, so in keeping with my whole idea of having tools to make sounds,
you have the ability to
have it.
do them. Yeah, Norm told me back in the day when he would buy stuff at pawn shops, if he would see one of these, that was like the great way to get a discount, is you plug the cable all the way in and you go, dude, this pickup's dead. That's it. And then they'd sell it to you for a discount, and then you go and plug a stereo cable into it. Yeah. Oh, the old days before the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, when I went to check the pickups, the guys, one of the screws had been
stripped or whatever.
Stripped. And they're like, we can't get the neck pickup out. And I think I'm the first person to actually take the neck pickup out.
Wow.
So, yeah, unmolested, unopened.
Tell me about PAFs. You know, every humbucker that you see is kind of based on that design. What is the magic? Can you explain to everybody why a real PAF is so magical?
I mean, I'm not an expert, but I'll tell you what I think of PAFs. Like, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but there's 2 notes. I hear 2 notes when I hear a PAF. Really, obviously not with a ton of gain, but you know, with some distortion, I hear 2 notes a lot of times. That double tone. There's sparkle on the top without being too abrasive. I know a lot of people have said we make a PAF, but a PAF to me is an underwound. It's not a super hot pickup, but even the pickups that I've had that have metered in the 9s or even 10, they weren't these dark pickups. If you get a new pickup and it's a 10, I don't know what that'll sound like.
No.
But they're just, I don't know, they just have this fidelity to them. It's open, but it can push, it compresses nicely when you put some gain on it.
Yeah.
You can hear it, you can hear every string. Turn the distortion up, you can still hear every string. That's what I think about a PAF.
Yeah, incredible pickups.
Yeah.
Tell me about TV Yellow, because I know we're both big fans of TV Yellow. What is it about TV Juniors?
Well, one of the first rock and roll bands that I became obsessed with were the Georgia Satellites, and Rick Richards played a TV Junior. And that's what I wanted, and I just became obsessed with it. Pictures on my wall and learning every single Georgia Satellites lick, probably incorrectly, but I just love that band because that was a sound. They made a racket together that I just was drawn to, and it was a band I could go see. I couldn't go see the Stones or Aerosmith, but it felt like you could get your hands on the Satellites, and I loved that. Yeah. So that's where TV started, and then of course, Keith Richards, and then working in a vintage guitar shop and picking them up, and just this love affair with TV Yellow started.
We have a trifecta of crock cases here. Normally, I know what's inside of those, and knowing you, I definitely know what's inside of them.
Let's have a look.
Can we do a triple reveal?
A triple reveal?
Oh man, these are clean crock cases too, which you rarely ever see.
These guitars do not travel in these cases, but they all came in the crock cases to me, so that's how they're going to live. Shall we?
Oh, dude. 3?
Maybe there's only one color. Let's get them out.
TV. Oh man. Single cuts, double cuts, beat ones, clean ones. Do you, oh, okay. Obviously, you're a fan of Les Paul Juniors, as am I. There's obviously single cut juniors, there's double cut juniors, there's harder beveled edge juniors and soft. What is the year that you think we got it the most right? Or is it really all just about, there's more juniors.
1956 is my favorite year.
Okay, so what do we have here, by the way? So
so you've got a 57.
57
and there's a great
TV.
story behind that guitar.
We'll take these one at a time, but let's get them all.
So
let's get them all out here.
This guitar, I call it Van Gogh. I was in Killer Vintage Guitars in St. Louis.
Dave's.
Long ago, 15 years ago. And I was walking out of the store and I said, Dave, I can't believe this is the first time I came to your store and I didn't buy anything. And I look over in the corner and I see this TV Junior, back of a TV Junior leaning in the corner. And I said, what's that guitar? And he's like, you don't want that. That's missing half the headstock. And I go, well, hold on a second. I go over, this guitar's sitting there. It's missing the wing off the headstock.
Yeah, I
the
see
ear.
Yeah.
It's got no, it doesn't have a stop bar. It has the pickup and the wiring harness. And the frets are just demolished.
That's the way to find it, man.
And I said,
that's perfect.
Come on, but here's the thing. It was missing the ear, but the tuner strip was still on it, and they still worked. So I got him to sell me the guitar for nothing. Well, because it was just a carcass, basically.
Yeah.
We had a couple parts in the bin in my work box on the road. Put strings on it, played it that night. It was impossible to, I played some slide on it.
Yeah.
And it was great. Sent it to Todd Money at Gibson.
Yeah.
Todd fixed the headstock for me. Jim Foote refretted it for me. And then that guitar opened 10, 12 years worth of Buck Cherry shows.
This was the one that was out on the road all the time.
That was the one. That was tuned in open G and it was playing all the songs.
All the songs. Now, I mean, you've got mint guitars, you've got clean guitars, you've got guitars like this. Does it matter to you if something is, I got to have a mint one, or
no,
or is it just sometimes they just speak to you?
I mean, it's guitar by guitar. The nice thing about these guitars that were made in this era, to me, is that they're made with such craftsmanship, such an old world craftsmanship, that it's really hard to find a bad one.
No.
There are shades of gray in there. Some are brighter, some are darker, some are lighter, heavier, but there really aren't any bad ones. I've never really played a bad one. I've never played a junior one. That's
just not a good one. Yeah, no.
But I have A-B'd them and went, that's a little more output. That one's a little bit brighter.
So this is the 57. Which that 59?
This is a 58, early 58. So you can tell by the serial number. That could be one of the first TV guitars. Tortoise guard, squared off body.
Yeah.
Which is
no bevel.
If you look at what God plays, he plays a double cut with a squared off body.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal. Great yellow on there. I had strap locks on it because I was playing it live. Light as a feather, rings like a bell.
It's a good one.
Yeah. I call this one, well, I don't want to tell you the nickname, but our Lord and Savior plays one of these.
Yeah. And the other thing you notice when you get a chance to look at three of them is how much the color actually varies on TV yellow, especially the earlier and earlier you get. It's almost like this wheat color, and then you get some that are really lime, like you can see the green, and then you get this kind of pale yellow.
Like to me, that's banana, and this is more mustard. And I sold our good friend Charlie Starr a phenomenal 56, actually cleaner than this one, if you can imagine, and almost the same color.
Yeah, that's just that batch from that year. So
this is a 59.
59 single cut.
59 single cut, so pretty rare.
Yeah, I've seen a few, but that is, I mean, by 58, the double cut body was already going.
Yeah, I mean, I had heard that they maybe made 10.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's...
I've seen 2 or 3. Yeah. This is probably the third one.
But this is great. It's light. It rings.
Does it have the neck?
Yes.
Is that the...
It's got the neck. Burst DNA right there.
And big frets.
Yeah.
Which is, those are still factory, right?
Yep. Burst DNA. At
But
least that's what I tell myself.
Yeah. But I mean, you got You gotta have a sunburst one. That one looks like it's got some stories.
This one's got lots of stories. I got this guitar in the say late 90s from a now defunct store called Black Market Music here in LA.
Yeah.
I think I got it for $1,500, which was all the money. Someone had put like bass frets on it. And I just thought, those are huge.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, I'll just play that guitar until I wear the frets out. I haven't worn them out yet.
Did it look like this when you...
It was checked, but it didn't have that and a lot of that, because this guitar, when I was in the studio working for a producer, I would take this guitar and I would hand it, and everyone was like, oh my God, I love this guitar. I want to buy it. I'm like, no, but you can use it. So this has been on tons of records.
Who have you handed this to in the studio?
The guys in My Chemical Romance made the Three Cheers record. This guitar was used. The guys in Papa Roach made Get Away with Murder record. I worked on that record, handed this to them. All the Buck Cherry records. But I mean,
that's a lot of stuff. Yeah.
That's some stuff. So the funny thing about this, and I didn't notice it till I got it home, is somebody had carved Jesus Saves in the lacquer. They scratched it in. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe he can pick it up with the camera.
Yeah, I can see it now. There's a lot of checking on it, so it kind of blends into the checking.
So when I got it, this wear spot wasn't there. I unfortunately did that with the pick on the road. But, so I call this the Jesus because of the Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
Because you don't F with the Jesus.
With the Jesus. Oh, man.
And it's just, it's my favorite year, 56. I think that's the year that I just love. And it's a workhorse, man. A workhorse, it sounds phenomenal. It does everything you want a Les Paul Jr. to do.
Yeah. Who needs a second pickup?
Not me.
Yeah. Get it done with the volume knob,
I mean,
man.
And we have a little theme going on here with one pickup guitars. One pickup does something different.
Yeah. Les Paul, more everything.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. It's not.
I think that
just
pickup
tight.
knows that it's got to work harder and do the work of two pickups.
Yeah. Is there anything that you haven't had a chance to own that's on your list?
Oh, well, there is after owning a Burst really took so much of the wind out of the sail of searching.
Now.
Yeah. To me, there's like this holy trinity, or maybe there's four. To me, there's a Blackguard Fender, a Burst, a Korina guitar, and a Herringbone Martin. So I got 3 out of 4, and the Korina could be within sniffing distance. So
it's transitioning.
Yes, it's transitioning slowly, but that's probably it. A 50s Korina Gibson.
Yeah, you're putting the Junior back, and I'm just staring at this Korina Flying V. Is this the one that's transitioning?
This is a known guitar. This is what is lovingly known as the Wing.
58 Korina Flying V.
I think our friend Joe had that out on the road for a while. I don't know if JD had that out for a while. It's been in the hands of a lot of players. It may or may not have found its new home here in Los Angeles.
It's been here for a while.
It's been here for a while, but it's a 50s. If it's a 58 Korina V, it needs really no explanation.
Yeah. This is probably the 7th or 8th one that I've got to get close with. Have you been putting it to work?
I have. We were talking earlier off camera, but I'll tell the story again. I made the Ricky Warwick solo record, and anywhere there was a harmony guitar solos, where I played both solos, this was one of the guys. This is one of the personalities. Through a Tweed Bandmaster with a Klon, pan to the left, this guy. I mean, it's a whole other level of fidelity to me.
Yeah, you got Bursts and people, that's the guitar. I guess this kind of is above a Burst. What does the Korina do, or the shape sonically? Because it's a solid body guitar, and you still got the same PAFs that are in the Burst and all that, but
Well, it's a work of art, first of all.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's my favorite shape of all times, and it's just the coolest guitar.
To my ear, it has this honk, this mid-range thing that a Les Paul's not getting. To me, the Les Paul's got a little more bottom end, different kind of top end. This is kind of cutting through there. It's fatter than an SG. I don't know. We're talking about describing colors, and to everybody it's different, but to me that's kind of where it sits. I think like Fandango. Like when I think of the sound of this guitar, I think Fandango, which everyone should have.
Yeah. Get your Billy on.
Get your Billy on.
In a guitar store too.
Yeah, so when I moved to LA in the early mid-90s, 93, I'd lied my way into a job at Guitar Center. I said, yeah, I know old guitars, it's my thing. I loved old guitars. And this is pre-internet, so any information you were getting, there were a couple of books out there.
Yeah.
I lied my way into the job, they hired me. And then I was like, I got the job, I was like, oh man, I better figure this out, I better learn. And I would just engrossed in every piece of book I could find, looking at every guitar that they had at the store, taking screws out of pick guards, looking at pickups, learning about pot codes and finishes and serial numbers, and just really down the rabbit hole of trying to get knowledge. And at the time, the guys at Guitar Center would kind of, other dealers would be like, oh, dump it at Guitar Center. But I always was like, yeah, we're all just trying to learn as much as we can here. And that's early on where I realized I was never going to be an expert. And anyone that says they're an expert, there's too many anomalies to it, but there are people that have seen a lot of guitars and are really knowledgeable people. So that quest for just learning everything I could about them started. Because Gibson did such a great job with the cases, it needs extra towels for safety. But this, to me, I bought this guitar. I was looking for a Firebird for a long time, and I had called a dealer friend in Nashville, and I said, hey, what's up with that Firebird on your website? And he's like, oh, it's sold, but I'm going to the guitar show, and I'll look for one for you. And then it's Saturday afternoon, and I'm watching college football on the tour bus, and my phone starts ringing, and I look down, and it's him, and I'm just like, this is
going to cost me money.
63, it has the lyre vibrola, which I've taken off. I've strung it through the tailpiece.
Yeah.
Feel the neck on that thing.
It's killer.
It's just insane.
So this is a Firebird III.
That's a 3.
So people always get confused on these numberings. I always tell them to equate it to like Les Pauls. You have the Firebird 1, which is like a Les Paul Junior.
Yep.
This is a Firebird 3, which is like a Les Paul Special. Still dot inlays, binding on the neck.
Exactly.
2 pickups. Firebird 5, trapezoids, wiggle stick like a standard, and then the 7, you got the 3 pickup.
The 2 pneumatic enters at the 5.
Yeah. And you get the 3 pickup with gold parts, ebony board, all the Les Paul custom features. So this is a Firebird 3.
And that does everything I need a Firebird to do, and it is phenomenal sounding. The secret is the bridge pickup does get a little bright, so you just
roll the tone off.
To like 7. And
get rid of the ice pick kind of thing.
Is it good?
Yeah. Rhythm guitar for you, lead guitar for you, both.
Both. So on the record that I was telling you where the V was one personality, that was the other one.
Yeah.
Through that Fawn AC-15.
How bad could that
sound? With the tube screamer. It didn't suck. Yeah. So it's good stuff, man. And really clean example, not broken. So it's hard to find them not broken.
Yeah.
But like I said, it sounds great. It's a goer. It's got the black ring.
That's so cool too. Was that on there when you got it?
Yeah, 63 is that is appropriate for that. And oh man, it's just good stuff all day.
It's a lot of fun.
The tremolo with the bridge that slides on, just a little iffy. So you
don't get a ton of angle. I mean, I like a wiggle stick, but
and then Mojo Axe, another shameless plug for Mojo Axe. They do make the tailpiece with the G string in the correct spot.
That's not compensated for flat wounds.
Exactly.
So people also don't know that is the lightning bars in the 60s, the guitar's shipped with flat wounds on there. So you put a set of 10 gauge round wound strings on there, the compensation is actually not in the right place for the G string.
Yeah, or that would work for a wound G string. But if you want a plain one like this, like the modern guitar string,
yeah,
you got to do that. So he makes a great product. Of course, we keep the right one in the case. So should I pass this guitar on?
I guess you're gonna have to look at what's in this ratty
that old beat up case.
Thermometer looking thing.
Pull on up here. Let's see what we got.
I normally don't like what comes in these.
So as you can see, the case has seen better days, but since it left the factory in 1953, it's traveled a little. This guitar is known as the Chunk. And this, I do believe, I got this from our good friend, Norm Harris.
Oh.
On one of those
fateful Esquire.
One of those fateful trips out to the big locker storage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Who needs 2 pickups on a Tele?
You don't need 2 pickups.
What are we doing, playing jazz? I just want a flat hole piece and that 18-watt Marshall down there, and oh God, how's the weight on it? Nice. You Strat guy or you Tele guy?
I'm really a Tele guy, although I do have a Strat because you have to have
one around.
That to me is, you know, I see your T-shirt, I see that guitar.
It just makes sense.
Yeah.
How do you use this? Is this just a texture?
No,
guitar,
this one, this guitar to me, you know, I've played every Blackguard I could ever get my hand on, and something's going on here that's like a ornery, almost P90.
Yeah,
it's way
good
more
flat poles.
There's not a lot of twang going on here. It's an aggressive, angry guitar. So this can really stand on its own. It doesn't, in a full-on rock band setting, this thing
keeps up with
absolutely
everything else.
You know, we love that position because it's straight to the volume pot. But you know, putting the tone knob in, back it off a little bit, even fattens up more. Phenomenal guitar, great weight, big neck.
Have you had other Blackguards, and this is the one that you ended up with, or is this kind of what you had your?
No, I mean I've had, I've probably I think I've owned like 6 Blackguard guitars, but this to me was the one. And anytime I've looked at another one, I've tried to A/B it with it, and this always comes up for me as what I prefer in a Telecaster. So since we're talking about Telecasters, I got a pair that are pretty cool.
Okay, we'll do a pair of Teles. I'll grab the black case. Oh, so we got a blonde case, we got a black case.
Well, that is not the correct case, but that's the case that I got that guitar in.
It's got flowers on it.
A little flower power. I have a thing about a double bound guitar.
Yeah.
I do.
Oh, this is a pair of customs. One Esquire, one Telecaster.
So this is a 1963 Esquire custom. It has really seen better days, but it's phenomenal sounding. Tuned to open G a lot, actually.
Yeah.
For that kind of thing.
Oh, this is a slab.
And that is a 1960.
Oh man. Slab board custom Telecaster.
So these guitars do have nicknames. That's the Princess, because she's a princess.
Yeah.
And this is the Nasty, because it sounds like it looks.
Yeah.
It's just ornery, ready to fight.
Where did these come from?
I don't recall where this one came from, because I've had it for so long. That one came from the guys at Olivia's Vintage, way back. Back when they were super affordable. I mean, they've really picked up on the price of those. But you know, someone's played that guitar and it sounds appropriate. It sounds great. That neck pickup on that, oh man.
Yeah.
Usually I'm not a fan of a neck pickup in a Tele, but that sounds really good. It's almost Stratty. Kind of kills the need for a Strat.
Really?
In my head.
Telecasters, maple neck or rosewood board. Do you really have a preference? Can you hear sonically a difference between the two?
I do. I hear the spank of the maple fretboard. That there's a top end fidelity that goes on with it to my ears. But that said, you know, this guitar, for all of its aggressiveness, is it almost lives in Les Paul Jr. land.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Like if you thought of a twangy Les Paul Jr., That's kind of
basically what that is.
Yeah. And these guitars get played all the time. They are workhorses, and for a reason.
Yeah. When you were on the road, were you always out chasing it? Did most of your stuff come? I mean, there's kind of a community of collectors that kind of control the really good stuff. But like, were you out chasing it in stores too? Or?
Always. Like, I would go into any store in any strip mall and see what they had. Always. I still am that way. Like, driving past one, it's like I start to twitch a little bit. You know, it doesn't happen. But I went in every store. I picked up every guitar I could see. I looked at everybody's guitar that would bring one to a show. Always looking. And, you know, it's pretty funny because we toured so much. I toured so much at that time that I would buy stuff and I would put it under the bus and we'd come home and I would load it into my locker and I'd go back on the road. And then I would come home a year and a half later and go, what's in these cases? I don't even know what's in here. It was just about like finding stuff I loved and I was excited and passionate about it, and then out of sight, out of mind. So, but there is like a small network of dealers, and I've actually become really good friends with a few dealers that so I can pick up the phone and call and say, what do you got? And you were one of those guys so one of my go-to guys. Hey, what do you think? You know, if you found something you knew I liked, you'd call me up, or I'd just call you or pop in. Yeah. So it's been really cool because it's become more about guitars. It's become this community of people. Everybody knows each other. Everybody pretends they like each other. Now, mostly everybody likes each other. It's the dealers that kind of get a little catty about it.
Well, it's a competition too. Everybody's going after the same stuff.
That's going to be edited out, I'm sure. But it's been a really great community of people, and I've met some really, really dear friends through vintage guitars.
Well, Rickenbacker? Mm-hmm. You don't strike me as a Rickenbacker kind of guy.
You know,
is it just astute? You got to have that sound.
I'm a Tom Petty nerd.
That's
and
true.
Everybody loves the Beatles.
Petty nerds.
This guitar, you know, going back to what I was talking to you about before about having
double bound,
having the toolkit. I mean, this is part of wanting to be able to make every sound.
You're not going to use this on everything, but if you need that sound, you're only going to get it out of a Rickenbacker.
Yeah, this came from Elliot back when he was in New York.
For those of you who don't know much about Ricks, when you see the binding, the double bound bodies, way rarer and way cooler. That's how you want to see it.
I think this is what they call a 335?
330, yeah. So 2 pickups, and the 5 is for the Vibrola.
And it's got that vibrato on it, the arms off of it in that bubble wrap right there.
Right on.
And it does exactly what you want that to do. Plug this into a Vox.
And it just jangle.
All day long.
Yeah.
It's great.
Moving on to more guitars that you got to have because they only sound like that.
Nothing sounds like it.
Yeah, throw a Gretsch in there. I'm guessing by the tooled leather case, we got a 6120 here.
This is an early 1960 with all the 59 sort of appointments.
PAF Filtertrons.
Yeah. It came with obviously a different bridge that's in the case.
But that intonates a little better.
We put that ABR1 on there to kind of get it to play right, and it does what a Gretsch is supposed to do.
Who would have thought a freaking orange guitar would be so cool, but like it looks so cool in orange. It's cool. Just so right.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff would you use this on?
I mean, anything from like wanting to get a more Australian rhythm guitar sound.
Yeah.
Like an AC/DC kind of thing.
Yeah.
But even more twangy kind of almost Western kind of stuff, spaghetti Western stuff. Yeah. Kind of does a bunch of different things. They're great rock and roll guitars. Like into a Marshall amp, they're phenomenal. You know, into the Tweed Bandmaster, you're in Pete Townsend land.
Yeah, in the Tweed Bassman, you're in Setzer land.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a cool guitar, man.
So it can really, you know, if you want to push it, the pickups are so low output that it's super responsive and it does a thing.
Now, is this something like I need a collection of Gretches, or it's like I'm going to buy this one and it's going to do the thing and that's my Gretsch collection?
That's it. That's
You're not like questing after a White Falcon or after a Country Gent.
I mean, it's tempting because they're really they're beautiful, and I'd love to have a Brown Harrison model, but that to me does what I needed to do.
What you needed to do, which is to give you that palette and in the studio. Killer. Ah, I love seeing the ones again.
It's probably got your handwriting on it.
Probably does.
So once again, falling victim to Norm Harris and his Band of Merrymen, 1945.
Got to have a herringbone.
00028 herringbone. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And I think you need, you know, it's much like a burst. I don't know if you really understand what's going on with these. You know, this isn't pre-war technically, it's 1945, but wow.
And these change so often too, and you look at them and you go, what's different? It's all under the hood with the bracing.
Yeah.
And 45 is the 1 year that's only in that 1 year they did the tapered braces, which on a triple O body in particular sound really, really incredible.
I mean, the most beautiful piece of Brazilian rosewood. And just a phenomenal.
Just such a subtly understated guitar, but just that little bit of herringbone on the outside just totally sets it off. Is this a strummer for you? This a finger picker for you?
I mean, it does a little bit of both, actually. I have a little bit of a lighter gauge string on it because of just the antiquity of everything. So I don't put like that modern heavy string on it. But it kind of does whatever you ask it to do.
Are you equally as passionate about the acoustic guitars as you are the electrics, or is this really just like a couple of tools in the toolbox?
A couple of tools in the toolbox. You know, I have some newer acoustic guitars that get a lot of play, guitars that I can hand to somebody that sound phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know, strum on that, tune it up, tune it down. Something like this probably wouldn't hand to somebody else unless they were a full adult.
Yeah.
But that said, they're tools. There is a certain amount of collectability about something like this. This is something I hope that my kids will appreciate long after I'm gone because it's really...
It's that caliber of...
It is.
Yeah, guitar.
But a tool nonetheless, and if it didn't sound great and play great, then it wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
But the next guitar that you're about to look at is a strummer.
It's a banger?
It's a banger, and it's a tool.
I'm guessing this is not the original case, so I don't know
it's not the original
what's
case,
in here.
But it's a much loved 1963, I believe, Gibson Dove.
Dove, the Tune-O-Matic. Is it natural or was it sunburst that really faded out? Because there's like this shadow around the like the rim here that looks like it's almost like a faded out sunburst.
Yeah. So I saw that guitar online many years ago.
Where did it come from?
It came from Elliot Michael, and I said,
from Rumble.
I called him up. Elliot's pretty well known for not liking acoustic guitars.
Yeah.
And I said, what's it sound like? And he goes, it sounds like Keith Richards. And I'm like, send it over.
Oh, it's sold.
Yeah.
Huh.
Enough said. But then, you know, hearing from you that Tom Petty did a lot of his writing.
This was, Damn the Torpedoes.
And it does that thing, man. It's, you know, maple body.
I mean, what is it about maple
on
an acoustic guitar?
I would think that it would sound really bright and kind of not have any bottom end, but that's not the case.
It's like the tightest bottom end.
It's like, really, really good. And this thing's really been played for a reason, because it sounds phenomenal. And, you know, I was a fan of those Mellencamp records in the 80s when I was coming up, and I was very impressionable, and
all over radio.
Pink Houses. He's probably playing a Hummingbird, but they're kind of in the same ballpark as tonally, and I just love the sound of them. Not to mention, of course, the reason he was doing that was because of the Stones and those guys playing Doves and Hummingbirds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think about that, and I think that guitar has a home here because it sonically does something that certainly the Herringbone doesn't, and a D45 doesn't, and a D28 doesn't.
Yeah. That's cool.
much like the guitars, I've tried to kind of get a nice cross-section of some of my favorite stuff.
I mean, the amps are almost the amp collection is almost as impressive as the guitar collection. What all,
so
we start here.
As a Park 50 watt from the mid 60s, 66. This is a Park 75 from the early 70s. This amp has KT66s in it, and it's just the loudest, boldest amp. So great for pedals, fuzz pedals.
Doesn't get real dirty.
Kind of doesn't want to break up. Yeah, this sounds like a Marshall 50 watt amp, and you know, at the time was a bargain. So those are great.
This is like the platform for
that's good.
sticking
Yes,
fuzz in
yes.
front of it.
That big muffin to that, phenomenal.
Yeah.
That right there is a Marshall Popular, and at one point in time, a few nefarious folks were trying to fake blues breakers, turn these chassis.
No names.
Trying to turn these chassis into blues breakers. That's what this was a victim of. So I bought it as a Marshall Popular.
You weren't scammed. You knew exactly what you were
and it was sold as such. It wasn't, you know, but it's loud, bold, awesome.
Yeah.
18 watts, 210s, phenomenal.
Killer. What's this just random Marshall?
This is a funny story. So this cabinet, when I moved to Los Angeles in the early 90s, I found this cabinet on the Music Connection.
Music Connection magazine, all right.
I drove down to Venice and bought it. I used it. I had some hard times. I sold it, but it had some very specific wear marks and some dirt on it. I sold it to Guitar Center. And then many years later, maybe 5 or 6 years later, this cabinet came back into the store, and I said to the guy that brought it in, his name is Tony, and he worked there with me. I said, "Where did you get this cabinet at? It looked really familiar." And he said, "Oh, I bought it here at the store." And I said, "That was my cabinet." So I bought it from him, which you weren't totally not supposed to do as an employee. But I ended up buying it from him. And it's been on pretty much every record I've ever made. All the Buck Cherry records, rhythm guitars cut through this cabinet. And it's just like a nondescript,
just stock Marshall.
90s stock Marshall with 75 watt speakers, but they're so worn that they kind of don't have that brittle thing on top.
Yeah.
Still holds the low end really good. And that cabinet's been on everything.
Yeah.
So it kind of came back.
Right on. Vox land. Oh, Fawn is fun.
A Fawn AC-15 twin with 212s and an AC-30 copper panel with 212s.
Top boost?
Yes.
Top boost added?
Top boost added at the factory in the back.
Nice.
And this is just creamy deliciousness.
Yeah.
I mean, this is awesome. This is everything from super chimey and awesome, and when that EF86 tube, when you really go for it, it just has that phenomenal breakup. I love cutting guitar solos through this, even though it's only 15 watts. It just does something.
Yeah.
Yeah, harmonically, it's almost three-dimensional.
Very cool. Brown Pro?
Center volume Brown Pro.
60?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the earliest version, and to me, one of the best sounding tremolos I've ever heard.
Oh, well, the Brown amps are like really the only Fender amps that have tube-driven tremolo. Everything else is kind of opto.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so this amp, and I have another Tweed Pro that I took the 15 out of and put a 12 in, but that has the 15 in it, and it just does this bell-like clean. It's really awesome. You know, I'm not using that for a rock and roll machine. I'm using that for bell-like cleans, maybe a Strat through it, anything that needs a tremolo.
That's the amp that you plug into.
And then it just sings.
Yeah.
So starting from the top, this is a little Marshall 20 watt PA head.
PA head.
EL84s. And at one time, I needed some work done on it, and Mark Sampson was helping me out do some from Matchless and Bad Cat and Star. Mark was working on some stuff for me, and he said, "You know, we used to do this trick on these amps where we would take this channel and feed it into that channel internally, so you don't have to jump it. And when you plug into this, it feeds that. So you can plug in here to this channel, and you get this channel. But when you go in here, and then you've got more gain, you can get it to be too much gain.
Yeah.
It's just, it sings.
I don't think that's possible. Is there such thing? It's
well,
too much gain.
I mean, it starts to fold back on itself, but it's just a really great version of that.
Black Flag?
Black Flag, I believe, what, a few months in 68 these were made?
67 or 68 somewhere.
Yeah.
That's I mean, this is the Angus
Yes.
JTM 50.
That's it, and I've had that for the better part of 20 some years.
This is probably seen a lot of.
It's been on tons of records, tons of sessions. It's exactly what that's supposed to be. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. And then a big boy.
And then a big boy, 71, still point-to-point wired.
Still Plexi? Still Plexi 71?
No, that's a brush panel right there.
Oh, okay.
But it's big and bold, and, you know, it's just, sounds like Free or Jimi Hendrix or any of that stuff, the stuff that we love. That through a 4x12 cabinet. I mean.
How old is this?
I'm not exactly sure of the vintage of that cabinet, but it's one of the ones I have a 25-watt speakers in it, and it sounds great.
You need that thing. Otherwise, you're going through the 75.
Otherwise, I'm going through that. I have a bunch of other cabinets. Obviously, for today's setting up in here, I didn't really want to drag them all out, but there are other toys.
You dragged enough stuff out here.
My back's sore. Your guys didn't really help me.
I know. They're the worst. The worst. Now, you're also kind of part of LA guitar lore, because everybody kind of knows about Joe's place, you know, Nerdville and all that stuff.
Right.
Most people don't know that was your house.
I mean,
and even before that, it has a whole.
It has a whole guitar provenance. So I bought that house from Oliver Lieber, great musician, great guitar player, fantastic songwriter and producer. We were friends. I bought that house from him. I lived there for 8 to 10 years. I got my first burst from Oliver Lieber, which was called The Bearded Lady. And then I had moved to Encino with my family because I spent a lot of years in that Laurel Canyon house as a single man.
Yeah.
Doing what single guys do, and now it was time to have a family. And so we moved to Encino, but I still kept the house because I was working out of the studio. And I ran into Joe at Third Encore, like, because we had lockers next to each other. I forget where it was. And he said, oh, I just came back from Nashville. I'm looking at houses. And I'm like, Nashville? She's by my house. It's for sale. He's like, oh, maybe I'll come by. And he came up and he looked at it. He's like, I have to live here. So there you go.
So what is the museum now at that house used to be your studio.
And when Oliver had it, it was more of, I wouldn't say digital, but he didn't have a console in there when I took it over. So I completely transferred the thing to an analog studio. I had an API console, 2-inch machine. There were tie lines in the house. I recorded my drums in the living room. I made a bunch of records up there.
Yeah. Tweed Town, one of the rarer Tweed amps.
I've had 3 of these. The cleanest one I ever had that sounds phenomenal is resting in Nerdville.
As the clean Tweed stuff
does. Gladly.
It's a retirement community for clean Tweed amps.
And the reason that I was willing to have that rest in Nerdville is because this not so clean one, to me, captures the magic of what the Bandmaster is. This was owned by a well-known guitar player. I don't want to out him in case he doesn't want it, but it was owned by a well-known guitar player. I didn't buy it directly from him. It almost breaks up too soon, but I love this amp. It does the 310s, there's some mojo going on there because I don't think it's an exact impedance match.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal.
Just does a thing.
Yeah. Probably one of my best-selling amps.
Nice.
And then this, a guy in the Valley named Mark AGNESI sold me.
Some jerk.
When he worked at Norm's Rare Guitars. It's a Tweed Vibrolux.
Does it still have the...
Yes, it does.
Does this have the foot switch glued to the...
So somebody glued the foot switch.
Yeah, there it is. I remember this amp.
It's awesome. It's really awesome. It loves a little overdrive pedal. A treble booster into that thing is a really nice... You know, it does kind of... Not as bold as a Deluxe, for sure, with the 10-inch speaker, but it's great.
That's pretty clean, too. Did Joe ever try and...
Maybe. We may have talked about it. And then this is a 57 Fender Pro.
15?
That I've put a new baffle board and a 12 in. And to me, what that does, it sounds like just a more stout Deluxe to me.
Yeah, a little beefier Deluxe.
Yeah, and you don't harm the amplifier by just getting one of the baffle boards that mounts right in. And it kind of takes an amp that I really wasn't that excited about and turns it into a tone machine.
Oh.
And then on the bottom is the Tweed Twin. That's the low-powered version.
Low-power twin.
But we don't hate the low-powered twin.
Nothing wrong with a low-powered twin.
And
it's killer.
That's it. Does exactly what a low-powered twin should do.
Loud.
Yep.
And creamy.
Loud and creamy. You know, you can pull that one out. That is really the sleeper of the bunch. And I was just having a conversation with someone.
The Silverface Princeton Reverb.
Silverface Princeton Reverb.
No, this is a drop edge. This is 68.
Yep.
First year with the drip edge.
That is a phenomenal sounding amp. And I was talking to Charlie Starr about this. You know, you see the old pictures of Ronnie Wood in the Faces on stage with one of those, mic'd up, doing like a TV show or something. It does a thing, man. It's phenomenal.
Mike Campbell seems to do okay with
it. He does just fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you put humbucking guitars into something like this? Or
not afraid, yes.
Not afraid to, and it handles it?
Mm-hmm. A lot of times what I find with these amps, I think I saw an interview somewhere with Dave Cobb where he said you put everything at 7 on a Tweed and it sounds great. And he's right. But these, you just kind of put everything about halfway up, little adjustment, and they just have a DNA and they just sound a certain way.
So like all the EQs at noon and just
and
like
just a little bit of reverb. Yeah. He'll be here all week, by the way.
Try the veal. Do you think you use all your toys more now or back when you were on the road, you know, playing gigs all over the world?
Well, I always toured. Once I got a Sunburst Les Paul, I toured with it. And Joe and Elliot Michael were two of the guys that said, you got to tour with it. You have to take it on the road.
What's the point of having it?
Right. And so I did. So I took out a vintage Marshall, a vintage AC-30, and a Burst, and I got to play it every night. And I'm so glad I did. I would take out my Blackguard Tele. I would take out vintage Juniors because I really believed in, I don't know if like some of the people in the audience, the majority of the people in the audience would care if what I was playing. I could play a Parker Fly through a Kemper. Yeah. And they'd be like, oh, the singer took his shirt off and they sang that song about the, you know, and that's the reality of it. And I totally get it. But for me, having my experience playing a Sunburst Les Paul through great amps with a cable, that to me was worth all of the drama to get that guitar in and out of situations in those amps.
Did you ever have a close call with the vintage guitar on the road?
Never. I always just kept them pretty locked down. You know, I've had the luxury of having great, two really phenomenal guitar techs during those years, Marcus Scheffer and Rem, guys that looked after me, always made sure that those guitars were taken care of.
Oh, dude. Keith, I gotta say thank you, man, for having us out today and opening the place up to us.
That was as much fun for me as it was for you.
I mean, it's not every Friday afternoon I play a 58 Korina V and a Sunburst Les Paul and a bunch of TV Juniors.
It's nice to share this stuff and, you know, to hear it and to show people.
Yeah, well, it was a very impressive thing, man. Thank you for having us out here. I appreciate it. Hey, I'm Mark AGNESI for Gibson TV. We'll see you guys next time on another episode of The Collection. Peace.